Hey guys, welcome back to Everything in Between. I'm here with Quazi, and he's got a story for us about addiction. And Quazi, floor's yours.
Yeah. Well, I've already done the podcast with you telling me my main story, so I thought I would let everyone know about, the addiction part of my life and all that fun stuff. Like at first I I was about 27 when or 26 when I first started doing opioids, but I wasn't, going hardcore into it yet. Um I had the first time I actually ever tried pain meds was when I had my teeth removed, and I took it as prescribed, and it made me feel good. So I was like, oh, this is nice. It was only 5 milligrams, and I took it every 4 hours, like it said on the bottle. And once it was gone, it was pretty much done. I didn't want it anymore. It was just a fun 2 weeks. Um, Fast forward to probably when I was about 26, and that's when I got my first kidney stone, and it was pretty pretty decent size. I didn't really know that was like the one of the times where my agoraphobia was so bad I didn't go outside at all. I was too afraid to. So I noticed that my urine looked like Pepsi, and that's like a clear indication that you're bleeding, and that's probably from a kidney stone. And I was just like, oh, well, that sucks, but I'm not going to go anywhere and do anything about it. And then probably about a week after that, the pain started, and let me tell you, man, kidney stone pain ain't no joke. I I overcame my anxiety and went to the doctor and was like, hey, I think I have a kidney stone. She's like, all right, well, let's check to see if there's any blood in your urine. And I peed in a cup and gave it to her, and she didn't even go back and test it. She was like, yeah, you have a kidney stone. And she gave me more oxycodone. And she told me she said she was sending me a referral to a urologist at OSU. He was like the best urologist. Well, I'll talk more about him later because he was not the best urologist. So, uh, about I don't know, 3 weeks went by, and I had taken all the Percocet she'd given me for my pain. Um, it, I, I guess I could say I was taking it as prescribed, but even if I wasn't having pain, I was still taking it just so I could get that high feeling. Which I should have recognized that as a red flag, but I just wanted to have fun, and it was getting rid of my anxiety and my depression. So I was I was all for it. Well, 2 or 3 weeks went by, and still no call from the urologist. But I didn't really care because I didn't want to go anyway because of my anxiety. Ran out of Percocet, and then at the time, my partner, her sister came over, and she was in the bedroom right next to the living room, and I was still staying up all night at the time. So it started around like 5 p.m. The pain was 20 times worse than it was the first time around when I went to go see my doctor. And it brought upon the worst nausea I ever had in my life. The pain was so severe. Um, and, my then fiance was asking me, like, hey, do you want to go to the hospital? I was like, no, no, it'll go away. I'll be okay. I'll go to the doctor tomorrow if it gets any worse. Well, it did get worse. I threw up pretty much every 20, 30 minutes to the point where I was just throwing up stomach acid. And I wasn't healthy back then. I wasn't like drinking water. I was still drinking a fuck ton of Mountain Dew. So I was already pretty dehydrated before the nausea started. um, but anyway, in the middle of the night, her sister messaged her and was like, yeah, he's out there like chugging Mountain Dew and he's still throwing up a bunch, you should take him to the ER. But I still said no. And then probably around like noon the next day, I was like, yeah, okay, let's go to the ER, because I'd taken one of her nausea meds, and it didn't it didn't do a damn thing. So we went there, and I was sitting in the lobby, and there was like 30 people in front of me, and about an hour waiting, I told her to go tell the doctors or the nurses up there that if they didn't come see me soon, I was going to pass out probably. And I ended up doing exactly that. I passed out in the ER waiting lobby for about 45 minutes until they came and got me. Um, they brought me back. The way I dressed, they thought that I was a junkie looking to get high. And I told them, do an MRI, I guess, if you have to. And they found the stone, and that's my first time I've ever had morphine. Uh, that that was very nice. They gave me morphine, and then they gave me fentanyl before I left. That's the first time out of 3 times I've ever had fentanyl. Um, I can proudly say that when I was hardcore addicted to pain meds, I wasn't shooting up anything. I wasn't like smoking it. I was just snorting it or taking it, orally like you're supposed to. But anyway, so they said the same thing. You have a kidney stone. It looks like it's big, small enough that you can pass it. You should still go see a urologist. But they had just told me that I didn't have to, that I could pass it, so I didn't really care. So that, let's see, we're probably a month or two into my kidney stone journey so far. Um, so basically, I went to my doctor because the pain was still there, and it was like a month later, and I still hadn't, peed out a kidney stone. Um, and she was like, "Well, let's set you up for some imaging, and I'll give you some more Percocet," which I didn't have a problem with. At this point, my anxiety and my depression had pretty much disappeared because uh, pain meds like oxycodone, they give you that happy feeling. They release the serotonin and dopamine in your brain. Um, so they did the imaging, and she said the stone was too big for me to pass, that I really needed to call the urologist, because he was never going to call me, apparently. So I did. I called him, but he wouldn't schedule me for another month. Uh, Now, from the beginning of my kidney stone journey, all the way up until I saw the urologist, my family doctor was prescribing me 30 perk fives every week almost for my pain because of how severe it was. Every time I went in, I had clear indications that I had a kidney stone. The pain in my back, shooting down into my groin. The urine and the blood in my urine, stuff like that. So I finally went to go see the urologist, and at first he seemed legit. OSU is a pretty decent hospital here in Ohio. So I was thinking to myself, I've got the best urologist at OSU. He's going to work on me. And, that's pretty good. Um, so I saw him the third month into my kidney stone, and he told me, all right, we'll do some imaging and go from there, because he told me with most big kidney stones, he could just like shoot a laser at the spot where it is and blast it from the outside. He did some imaging, and they couldn't find the fucking kidney stone. It was like hollow, so he couldn't pinpoint where it was. And every day it moved just a little bit closer down from your kidney to your bladder. It's connected from a tube called your ureter, and from your bladder out, it's called your urethra. And basically every day it was slowly moving. So he was doing all this imaging, trying to figure out where it was so he could blast it. And that would have been, could have done it that week. But he said, you know what, Mr. Hickman, we can't do it like this. So what we have to do is we have to go in with like a camera and like tools and blast it from the inside. And I was like, you know what? Okay, how long will that take? And he said, well, I'm scheduling 6 months out right now because, this is it took him 2 hours to do it. So he said, all right, you got to wait 6 months. And I was like, you know what? I'm fine with that. But my family doctor said that since you're treating me now, you have to give me oxycodone. And he did. He was giving me oxycodone every week, just like my family doctor was, for 6 months. What a lot of people don't know is after 90 days, about 3 months of you being on any kind of medication, your brain starts getting a little bit needing that medication. So I was addicted, and I knew that, I was taking it even when I wasn't in pain, but I was still taking 5 milligrams of it every 4 hours, and I wasn't snorting it. I was just taking it normally. Um, but yeah, so, the time went by, you know, every, I'd say around month 4, I realized that, it was still helping me with my pain, but it wasn't making me high anymore. So that's when I started taking 10 milligrams. I started taking 2 of them at a time. And also, I was getting perk tins from somebody close to me. I'm not going to say their name because, just in case they ever like
Yeah.
listen to this. But so I was getting them from him and from the person close to me. Um, and that went on pretty much for a while. Around month 6, I started doing 15, 20 milligrams. Uh, and as it got closer and closer to the like date for
Procedure.
my surgery,
Yeah.
it I started feeling sick when I didn't have it. The withdrawals had started setting in because I was taking more and more and running out quicker and quicker. And once he had done the surgery, he kind of jacked me up really bad because when he put in a stent, which basically helps push the fragments of the stone he broke up out. And when he took that stent out, he didn't do any imaging to see if there was any parts of it left. Uh, and to this day, I still have lingering pain from him like removing the stent the wrong way. But like that same day he removed the stent, I started having the horrible kidney stone pain again. Went back to the hospital, and they were like, "Oh, he shouldn't have removed it. There's still a bunch of pieces of kidney stone stuck in you," and it was like blocking the fluid from my kidney to my bladder. So my like kidney was all like swollen. It was like 3 times the size it was supposed to be. Um, and that was that happened the first time too. Um, but anyway, they gave me morphine, more Percocet. He did so he did 3 surgeries in total, one to go in, one to put in the stent, an outpatient procedure I was awake for to remove the stent, and then he had to do exploratory surgery to look for more pieces. And then it was at 9 months, and he was like, "Yeah, so I couldn't find any more pieces. I got some out, but there aren't any more, and you're good to go." And that was that was a harsh wake up call for me because I wasn't on psych meds at the time, so I didn't have any more oxycodone, and I didn't know that I could go out and buy it from people. The person close to me said, "Well, you're not getting oxycodone anymore from your doctor, so I'm not going to give it to you either." So I was pretty much shit out of luck, you know, and I got off of it. It was very difficult because at that point I was doing 20 milligrams, and the withdrawals were very very severe. Not as severe as they would come to be in the future, but you know, um, I smoked a lot of weed that helped me get off of Percocet the first time. Then about 2 months went by, and I was fine off of it. I was fine. I wasn't having any cravings or whatever. I was done. Oh, back up a little bit because I forgot this part. I tried telling my doctor that I was addicted to it, and he didn't believe me. He basically told me to go fuck myself. Uh, he told me that I wasn't doing it that long to be addicted to it. I knew he was wrong, but I didn't even bother to argue with it. But basically, when I was done, 2 months went by, and one of my friends, she was like, "Hey, Quazi, do you still have kidney stone pain? Because I have a bunch of Percocet that I could sell you." And I was like, "Oh, really?" I trusted this person, so I was like, "Okay." So she told me how much they would be, and I bought them from her, and that kind of opened that wound of me being addicted. Basically, I got the stuff from her, and then once I ran out, I was like, I'm back to where I was before. I really want it. And I had a friend that lived upstairs in the second floor of my apartment building. And I asked him, like, "Hey, Jimmy, do you know where I could get pain medicine from?" And he told me he gets it from the guy right across the street. And I was like, "Oh, right across the street, you say? That's cool. Can I have his number?" And that started, me starting to buy it illegally from people. And at that point, I was probably doing 25, 30 milligrams. Um, my partner at the time, she knew that I was addicted to it, but she really didn't. It was her excuse to not care anymore. And I was starting to get into the junkie territory a little bit. I still wasn't snorting it yet. Everyone was telling me if you don't stop, you're going to get addicted to heroin, which I never did, even though I was offered it plenty of times. Um, it just, I don't know how to explain it. It just made me feel better. It made my depression go away, made me happy. which, now that I think about it, it really wasn't making me happy. In fact, it made me worse. It was making my mental health worse and worse. But basically, yeah, let's see. Um, I'd say this is at the point where it's like 3 months after my kidney stone surgery. I was I slowly started to like miss payments on bills and spending more and more of my money to get them from the guy across the street. Uh, and eventually it came to a point where I was taking 45 milligrams of it, and there were a couple times where I was probably really close to overdosing because I was pushing my threshold more and more. Um, and after those times, slowly started to realize that I can only do 40 to 45 milligrams every day, and that's it. I can't do more than that, or I'm gonna die. Um, and that went on for probably until I was about 28, so 2 years of me being addicted. Um, then my then fiance, she decided to like up and leave, and I knew that I was about to lose everything, my apartment, all my belongings, everything. Somebody helped me pay rent the first month after she left because I couldn't afford it by myself. I was on Social Security. My rent was like $800, and I was getting $751. So I was like, well, I know this ain't gonna work. So that month, I spent all my money on pills, and that's when I discovered that I could snort them and it would make me high faster than taking it normally. Jimmy taught me that, the guy that lived upstairs. Jimmy became like my drug buddy. Whenever he didn't have any and he was going through withdrawals, I'd give him some of mine. And basically, I fell into this rut where every month I would buy enough to last me about 8 days. And then once the 8 days were up, I'd pawn something like my Xbox. And that would get me enough to have like another 2 or 3 days of fun. And then the rest of the month, I would just like suffer until I got paid again on the first. And that went like that for about 2 or 3 months before I lost the apartment. I couldn't pay for it anymore. I couldn't keep the bills on and pay rent. So I was homeless. I pawned all my stuff that last month because I knew I had nowhere to, store it or anything. I pawned everything I could, everything worth any kind of money. I pawned it and, used the money to get more drugs. Um, the friend who had conveniently enough sold me the Percocet the first time I like ever bought it illegally, she told me, "Oh, well, I'm in a nursing home right now, or like a rehabilitation place, and my mom, she she'd be okay with you staying there." They were using the fuck out of me. Their rent was like $700, and I was paying like 600 a month. No, 500 a month. Um, Man, this other guy staying there too. His name was Nick, and he told me because I told him like straight up as soon as I met him. I told him, "Yeah, I'm an addict," and he's like, "Oh, what do you take?" And I'm like, "Percocet," and he was like, "Oh, well, how convenient. My fiance is also in the same rehabilitation place as your friend is, uh, and she gets prescribed Percocet." And I was like, "Well, well, well, how convenient for me." Um, and this is part of the dark part of like being an addict. This woman would cheek her pills in this like nursing home, which means that they were in her mouth, and she wasn't the cleanest looking kind of person. And he would bring out these pills that like you couldn't read what they were. They had bits of food in them, and we would wait till they were a little bit drier, and we would crush them up and snort them. um, and we pretty much did that for like 4 or 5 months. Uh, I wasn't getting the normal amount that I was normally, I would for the first few days of the month because, I got paid. But after that, I wasn't doing nearly enough. Uh, I would do like 5 milligrams a day if I was lucky. Um, that lasted for about 4 or 5 months until he left. He moved somewhere. And I thought to myself, well, this is the end. I'm not going to get any more Percocet from him or from his, fiance. So what am I going to do? Well, I knew where she went every day to go get her dialysis. So I went there and met her and told her, like, hey, he he moved to another state, as she was already aware. Could I make a deal with you, just me and you, so I could keep getting pills from you? We came to the agreement. She did not know how much money she could have made, and I, was a junkie, so I 100% didn't tell her that they were $5 a pill. I offered her like $100 of like snacks every month, and like $50 in cash, and she said sure. She was giving me 2 pills every Monday and Wednesday, and 4 pills every Friday to last me through the weekend. Um, and that was pretty much that. My anxiety got so horrible at that point because at that point in time, I the a Percocet started giving me anxiety. It started making my anxiety worse. It wasn't getting rid of it like it used to. At that point, I was just doing it just so I could feel normal. Um, which now that I think about it is crazy because now that I'm not on it, like this feels normal and that feels it like a mistake, kind of. Well, yeah, it was definitely a mistake.
Like a
Well,
dream.
yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, there are days where I still like really, really crave, you know, Percocet. I think about it, how happy it made me feel while I was on it. But then I also remember the fact that, I was pawning all my shit for drugs.
Yeah.
That I would like, I wasn't out, I just want everybody to know, just to clarify, I wasn't out, like sucking dick for money. I wasn't out like robbing people. I was just, pawning all of my shit. I was a pretty intelligent person even while I was doing Percocet, and that came up several times with some of the shady people I had to deal with. This one guy, he tried selling me Percocet that was laced with fentanyl, and I told him like, look, man, this might fly with some of the other junkies you deal with, but I'm fucking educated and I know what this is supposed to look like, and it's not supposed to have these little flecks in it. I'm not fucking stupid. And he got real upset and threatened to kill me, and I was like, I don't give a fuck, bitch, give me my money back. And he gave me my money back. um but yeah, like I knew that you know if I did something horribly illegal to get more money to get drugs, I knew that I would just go to jail, and you can't get fucking drugs in jail. So um where was I, what part of the story? Oh, yeah. So basically, I had that deal with her for a while, and I slowly started to realize that taking this much Percocet, taking 45 milligrams of it, ain't gonna fucking fly anymore. So I should have gone to rehab, but I started weaning myself off of it slowly, um, to the point where I was only taking uh, 2 5s a day, and that was it. Um, I was really proud of myself. You know, going from 45 snorting them down to 10 milligrams, just taking them orally. That's a big fucking deal, and the anxiety from that, you know, fucking destroyed me a little bit, but it was better than the anxiety that the Percocet was giving me. Um,
Oh, that's good.
yeah, I mean, like, and I was still buying them from the person that was close to me or whatever. I was lying and telling her that somebody else was buying them, but I was really buying them. Um, Eventually, it didn't work out where I was staying there because I was homeless. I was living on this lady's couch, and my mom, she said, "Hey, you can come stay with me." And I was like, you know what? Okay, sure. I'll trust you this time around. I'll come stay with you. That only lasted like a month and a half. I just stayed in my room, and I did 10 milligrams a day and played video games. But it didn't work out. Me and my mom don't get along very well, so I left that place, and I took what little drugs I had left in my Xbox and like walked to this like church, and I called my friend Jen and was like, "Hey, can I come stay at your house?" My mom just kicked me out. She's like, "Sure." And I went there and just did a bunch of drugs and was really sad because I was homeless again. And there we go. And there were these two people that were drug addicts too, and they were like, "Hey, bro, you want to come live with us in Dayton?" And I was like, "I don't fucking know you, but it's better than being homeless, for sure." So I came with them to Dayton, and like, it was right before the first, and I knew he was an addict, so I was like, "Hey, bro, if I give you my card, can you go get my Xbox out of the pawn shop in Columbus and go to my dealer's house and get me pills? Because, my anxiety was really bad. I didn't want to go anywhere. And he was like, yeah, sure, man. Can I have some? And I'm like, oh, you do drugs? And he was like, hell yeah. And I'm like, all right, sweet. He went and got all my drugs for me. They pretty much did that every month for a while. Um, and that's basically what my routine was. I stayed inside. The first place we lived at here in Dayton, and I just did Percocet every day for a long time. I met Pam probably 2 months after we moved here, and I told her straight up, like, look, I do Percocet. She really didn't seem to give a fuck. Uh, she could tell that I wasn't like a horrible fucking junkie. I wasn't pawning anything anymore. I was actually starting to collect things again, like DVDs, video games, and I, didn't pawn my Xbox anymore. Um, and I was doing these like little pink tins that, I could have crushed up and snorted because they were so small, but I was just taking them normally. And that's a difference people don't think about. Um, the side effects you get when you do drugs for so long is fucking ridiculous. I had started getting this adverse reaction to acetaminophen, which is what they cut oxycodone with. It's normally oxycodone and then 325 milligrams of acetaminophen, and I started getting itchy. My face started to swell up. I started getting like random spots all over my body where I would swell up. Uh, when I was snorting the 45 milligrams every day, I had this weird thing where I couldn't go to the bathroom, like I couldn't like pee for some reason. Of course, it makes you constipated. Um, all that fun stuff. Yeah. But the difference between the regular Percocet I was taking and the little pink ones, where the pink ones were instant release. So, you won't have to wait 30, 45 minutes for it to hit you. It hits you right away. It started hitting me like a brick wall. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit less of these because, it hits me so fast. It was making me anxious. It was still making me high, but it was the anxious kind of high, which wasn't very fun. So I started taking, less of it. And I don't know what caused my brain to get so paranoid, but I started thinking to myself, if I cut these down to 5 milligrams, if I only take half of it, now I can only take half. Even though I knew that, I could take a full one and I'd be fine. I would just be anxious. So I slowly started to, do less and less and less and less, which, eventually I started doing such a low dose that, there were no risks to it. There were no withdrawals. Um, I think I was doing probably 2 milligrams, probably about a year and a half ago. And then, I would have arguments with my roommates because, I would trade them little bits and pieces, but tell them they had to give me like twice back in return. But, they were the hardcore junkies like I was. I tried helping them and telling them what they were doing was like, no bueno, you shouldn't do it, but they didn't listen to me. Not like I don't have any experience in it or anything. And they would miss the days where they had to go get my shit, to replace it, and I would end up having to go without, and that would make me very, very anxious, very anxious. Um, but yeah, and it kept going like that for a while until about 7 months ago. I decided that my mental health was declining, and it wasn't even doing anything. It just made me, when you're so used to doing something like, like smoking a cigarette when you first wake up, it was like that. I would eat something, take a little sliver of a Percocet, like probably 1 milligram of it, and sit down and, play Xbox. And it would make me feel sick when I would start to come off of it. That would be probably 30 minutes after I took it, because it wasn't a lot. I realized that, I have to get better for my kids, and I have to, like, not be this person anymore. So I stopped. I just flushed it all down the toilet. And then about a month later, I started taking psych meds again.
How long
But
ago
like
was that when you flushed them?
7 months ago.
Okay.
The thing people don't realize, like, it's called doctor shopping. When I was snorting a bunch of pills, I was doctor shopping like a motherfucker. I would go to the hospital for any reason. And they never told me I was put on the like the drug abuser watch list, but I definitely know that I was like 100%. I went there for like any minor inconvenience and tried to get pain meds. I actually like the family doctor that was prescribing me the oxycodone in the beginning of my kidney stone. They stopped seeing me. They like told me I couldn't come there anymore because they I went in there and told them that I had kidney stone problems. I made sure to see a nurse practitioner, and she was just all right, sure, let me give you some Percocet. But she also gave me a drug test and said if we find it in your system and you can't come here anymore. And I already knew that I had it in my system. I just wanted the drugs. And as soon as they gave me the prescription, I was like, I'm never going to come here again, probably, because they're going to kick me out. And they did. They kicked me out. Pretty much the end of that.
How hard it
And
was? How hard it was for you when you came off of it? Like when you flushed them, what kind of
um,
side effects were you getting from coming off? Or had you weaned yourself off successfully enough to where it wasn't so bad?
I didn't have withdrawals, but I felt my body going back to normal. Like even though it wasn't like giving me a lot of dopamine or serotonin, it was still giving me some. And the thing with being on pain medicine is that it. So for instance, like when you're on psych meds, right? Like let's name one off, Prozac. Eventually your body's like, oh, this Prozac is nice. It helps me create dopamine and serotonin. Now that's what depression is basically. Your body doesn't create enough of these chemicals. Well, my body had been on it for so long that my body didn't know how to create it on its own. And it stopped, doing that for a while. Like it's probably been, I don't know, I'd say a good 5 years now, 6 years probably, since my body has like been able to create its own dopamine and serotonin. It doesn't feel like it. When you find something awesome on TV you want to watch, you're just like, oh yeah, I'm excited to watch this. I don't feel that anymore. It's slowly starting to come back because my body's going back to normal, but not the way it was before. I don't. I All the time I was doing Percocet for like I'd say the good past 3 years of me doing it. I didn't feel that excited feeling except for when I was getting more drugs. Um, I mean, really, really big things were making me excited. Like thinking about my kids being born, stuff like that. But other than that, no, there was nothing that made me excited. Everything, like I was just like a depressed zombie. My body, like, my brain was so used to getting more and more and more, and then all of a sudden I like stopped doing that, and I woke up and the only thing I looked forward to was taking that little sliver. But that really wasn't doing anything. It was all in my head because it was such a low dose. It wasn't doing a damn thing.
When did you move out of that house with the roommates?
Um, well, I moved from them. I moved with them from that house um, to a different house. That's after we had our daughter. We moved to this really nice place in Beaver Creek, and then it didn't last very long. Like I said, they were junkies too, so it didn't last very long because they wouldn't pay bills. They wouldn't do anything. They kept like going from job to job to job because they would get high and then not want to go to work and shit. That was pretty much that.
How
You know the
long?
whole the whole point of me like telling the story is because if I could help someone realize that pain medicine, taking any kind of drug, it's not going to help you in the long run. It like when I first started doing Percocet, I thought that it was helping me, because it was getting rid of my pain and it was making me feel happy. But that's just a lie. It's kind of like taking Dayquil when you have a cold. It's not really helping your cold. It's just masking the symptoms until
Mm.
it's out of your system. You know, the only difference is when you get over a cold, you're back to normal. You can't ever get over your mental well, you can, but it'll always be there in a way. And it does, it changes the your brain chemistry. Hardcore it does. And if I would have if I could change it, I would go back and go to rehab instead of doing it cold turkey, because that like made my mental health 40 times worse than what it was before.
I've never been addicted to anything hardcore. Like, I broke my hand when I was a kid, and they gave me Vicodin, and I loved Vicodin, and I ended up taking 12 in one day and throwing up a lot, and they stopped giving it to me after that. But I just remember it making me happy too, and I could easily see myself, if I had the access to it, to take it, all the time and forever, just because of the happy feeling that you think it's making you feel, like you said, that it was making you feel happy. The only thing I ever did was like, I had tried Coke a couple times. I used to drink a little bit, but I only ever smoked pot, really, and that was from everything that I've ever done was from 15 to 18, and I had a one last panic attack with smoking, and I scared myself out of it. So it's like, I have good memories of being high. Playing video games will never be as fun, but like, I didn't quit because like I made a choice, or it wasn't even really that hard. It was more like the fear I felt was so overpowering that like I just never did it again. Sort of kind of like being agoraphobic, how
Yeah.
having a panic attack and just never wanting to do that again, so avoiding it at all costs. But not necessarily super powerful drugs, but I'm heavily addicted to cigarettes and soda, and it seems like they're legal for me to buy, easy access, and if I'm not drinking a soda, or if if I take too long, or if I'm the moment I wake up, I need to smoke a cigarette and drink soda, otherwise I'm just dizzy, and my body is just so used to putting that shit in there. And I know it's not the same as pain meds, but at the same time, it's like, I think
Let's say it's still an addiction.
yeah, I think you can get addicted to like a lot of different things, like really
There's been a
anything.
lot of like research and studies that show that people with depression and anxiety and like mental conditions, they're more susceptible to get addicted to stuff than normal people are,
Yeah,
because they're looking for that like cure to make them better.
right.
Like I'll tell you a story about my friend Jimmy, the guy I told you about that lived upstairs, that like introduced me to where I could buy it from.
Yeah.
Jimmy was a very nice person. When I first met him, when I first moved into my apartment, he was a little bit chubbier than what he was. Um, for a minute there, I kind of knew that he was a junkie. He was doing like cocaine and crack, and um, just the hardcore shit. I never did any hardcore shit, so I didn't like ever talk to Jimmy very much, because I knew what kind of people he hung out with and what he did. Um, but me, I judged a lot of people that were close to me because they were addicted to drugs, and I couldn't relate to them. My best friend was murdered because of drugs, and I remember when we tried like giving her intervention. I was like, you don't want to be a junkie forever. Just quit. If I would have known then what I know now, I would have been like, look, man, I understand what you're going through. It's fucking horrible. She was doing a lot more shit than I was, so her withdrawals must have been like 40 times worse. But
Yeah.
like Jimmy, you know, he he got really sick. He had GERD, which is like a acid reflux condition, and he got esophageal cancer, really bad. He almost died from it. He lost a lot of weight. He was very thin. Um, he almost didn't make it, but eventually he pulled through. And Jimmy was already an addict, so when he got done with it, he stopped doing all the hardcore shit, and he was just doing pain meds, because when you have cancer, they give you a fuck ton of pain meds. He had gotten really addicted to that. Um, and I could tell, you don't see a lot of old people that have been addicts their entire lives, because most of them die before they like hit 50 or 40. Jimmy was one of the like rare occurrences for me where he was like 60 years old. The man had done every kind of drug known to mankind. Like I used to call him the Hoover vac, because he could snort lines faster than anything. And he didn't seem all there. He was always, he wouldn't remember shit you told him the day before, and he was hardcore. Like whenever we would go to get pain meds together, he wouldn't even like snort them or swallow them. He would just chew them up, because you can't snort a line if you're driving on the freeway. Um, and eventually we were both going through withdrawals and went to the guy's house I told you about that tried selling me the laced pill. Uh,
Right.
and Jimmy was supposed to go in there and get uh, some Percocet to make him feel better. I was fine with waiting until the next day. We were gonna go get some more, and he came. He was taking forever, and I was like, "Dude, what the fuck is he doing in there?" He came back out, and he was like, "I just snorted heroin," and I was like, "Jimmy, what the fuck, man?" I really didn't care what he did. And he was okay at first. We were driving down Morse Road, back towards the apartment complex, and the way we were going, we intersect with High Street, like a really like one of the busiest streets in Columbus, and like he wouldn't talk anymore, and we were still going like 30 miles an hour, and it was obvious to me that he was overdosing, and we were about to run into oncoming traffic, so I reached over and I took his hands off the steering wheel, and I pressed on the brake and then put the car in park and then got out and called 911. He'd like stopped breathing. I didn't want to narc him out, but I told him like straight up he did heroin, and that you thought that would have been like a wake up call, but it wasn't, because when he got out of the hospital, he threw up a bunch, and then the next day he was back out doing drugs again. But like that made me think a little bit more about it. But him being in the hospital also, like they did a CT scan, to make sure he was okay and everything, because technically he wasn't getting any oxygen for a minute, and they found a tumor on his like shoulder bone, and his cancer came back. And you know, the fun thing about becoming an addict is like, for instance, the next time I have to go to the hospital for a kidney stone and they give me Percocet, it probably won't work because my tolerance is so high, my body's so used to it. Well, that's what ended up happening to Jimmy. He couldn't do the treatments he needed to get rid of his cancer for the second time, so it just ate him away. And they had to make this concoction of like, I don't know, all the pain meds put together in liquid form because he was so used to all the pain meds that nothing worked. And he also had hepatitis C, which is a you know, disease with your liver, and your liver is the thing that processes all those gummy pain meds to make you feel better. And his liver was shot, so he couldn't process any of the pain medicine. It didn't work. And eventually he died. And the Percocet had made me so anxious that I couldn't even go see him because I was too anxious to leave. There's a few things in my life that like I'll never forgive myself for, and one of them is being a junkie, and another one is not seeing him before he died. He was my best friend for a long time. Probably not the best, a good choice for a best friend, but I took what I was given and ran with it.
Yeah. Addiction's hard, man. I mean, especially us with anxiety, as you said, like we're desperately searching for comfort. A lot of people suffer with depression as well, and search for that comfort, and it makes them feel better. But as you said, you develop a tolerance, and you got to take more. And in your mind, you're feeling these good, happy feelings, but in reality, you're just destroying yourself from the inside out. And
Yeah,
a lot of the time you don't find out until it's too late, and then it's just you have to somehow crawl your way out of this black hole that like everything in your body is telling you that you need to be in it, but you really just need to get out of it, and it's hard to do.
yeah. I call those the dark times because like
Yeah.
I was walking back from the dialysis place and I didn't want to wait till I got home to do it, so I went in the bathroom and crushed him up and snorted it off a toilet in the bathroom in like a restaurant.
Yeah, desperate times, gotta do what you gotta do. I remember, I mean, it's not the same thing at all, but I remember with pot, and people make fun of people or whatever that say pot can be addictive, but I really think everything can be addictive. But I just remember like picking little bits out of my carpet, with hair in them, and just like whatever, I want to get high.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I would like crush up all my pills on the couch in the place I was staying at, and I would little dust pieces would fall out. And I remember when I was, going through horrible withdrawals, I would like sit there with tweezers and pick through the carpet
Yeah.
and little pieces. But the problem is that there were pieces in there that weren't the same color. So I know that, oh, this piece is probably from, a Perk 30. So I had to, I didn't even care that, I could overdose taking the wrong kind of Percocet, but I didn't give a fuck. I crushed it up and snorted it.
Yeah.
And it got, um, there are many points to the story where I'm trying to make is like it fucks with your mental health, but it also fucks with your physical health. I have a hole in my nose in my left nostril, um, because the chemicals ate away at the lining of my nose. It's not a very big hole. It could be a lot worse. Jimmy had a hole like the size of a dime in his nose. Mine is probably the size of a tic tac. Every time I get a cold, my left nostril just runs constantly. It never stops. I have to like plug it up with tissue or it'll just drip constantly. Um,
Um,
it's not fun. It also fucked with my short term memory. So now I can't like remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. Probably cereal though, but
yeah.
it's just not not fun. It fucks with your nervous system, everything. And also, like, if you get clean off a Percocet or off of any kind of drug that you've been taking for a while, it takes a minute for your brain to go back to normal.
Yeah.
So my doctor told me, like, any medicine you try and take to help with your anxiety or depression, probably not going to work right because your brain is so used to absorbing this one pill and this one pill only, and your body is just now going back to normal. Like, I've lost a shit ton of weight just from being off of Percocet because it was slowing down my metabolism so much. Um, it just, there's a lot of stuff it does that messes with you. And I think I've done pretty much every kind of pain med except for, fentanyl was only given to me by, doctors and hospitals. The same with morphine. I took morphine pills, tramadol, Vicodin, just a lot.
Yeah, like I said, I've been clean from everything for 12 years, and it's honestly hard for me to take a Tylenol. Like, I'll do literally everything I can before I, you know, take anything. Like, if I have a headache, I mean, that's when I usually take a Tylenol, but, if I have a headache, I'll ask my wife to massage my head, I'll take a hot shower, I'll eat spicy food, and, if I still need it, then I guess I'll take one, not the two that they recommend. I'm actually terrified of putting anything into my body. And I know, Tylenol is pretty harmless, but at the same time, like, I just don't like putting shit in there.
I'm too nervous to take pain meds now. Like, if I ever had another kidney stone, I don't know what I would do. I'd kind of be fucked, My tolerance is 1 milligram now. So, I'd have to tell them, like, I'm a recovering addict and my tolerance is like zero. I've talked to doctors and they've told me that if I took, you know, a Perk 5, I'd be fine. But that still gives me really bad anxiety because the whole time I'd be on it, I would think that I'd be dying. So I would rather just not do it. But, when I had my kidney stone, I didn't try the other stuff they were giving me. They gave me a shit ton of medicine that was non-narcotic, but I just didn't take it. Like there was this one pill they gave me that it, like numbs your tubes in your body, um, and it makes it so that you can't feel anything. But she it was actually really funny because the first time I was on that, I went to the bathroom, my pee was orange, and I was like freaking out. I was having like the worst panic attack ever, and I called her, and she was like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, that's just a normal side effect." And I was like, "It would be nice if you would have told me that beforehand." But there's a lot of different. I mean, like, I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't take pain medicine if you're in horrible pain. You should. Just remember that it can lead you down a dark road. There's medicine that's just as strong as narcotics to help you with pain. It's just that narcotics they work just a little bit better.
Yeah. And as good as it
Like
feels.
I always used to joke that all the pain meds I was taking, I'd always be like, this would be really good for depression medicine if it wasn't so
Yeah.
addictive. It would, but just like with any other medication, I'm on Prestique right now. I guarantee you, in a couple months, I'm going to have to get my dose upped because it doesn't work as well. That's the same thing with pain meds. You gotta go up and up and up. I mean, I saw this one guy on YouTube and he was doing 125 milligrams a day. I was like, bro, that is fucking crazy. I cannot imagine doing 125 milligrams of Percocet a day.
Yeah,
There
it's
was it
no.
was
Go
just
ahead.
not fun. I was working at my friend's store at this mall, and I was like taking money out of the register to buy me drugs. I was putting it back once I got paid, but just not good, man.
Yeah, it is weird, especially with like the non-pain meds, like the psych meds, because like if you freaking break your arm or something happens to you and you need pain meds, that makes sense. You're healing, you're in pain, that's all fine. But stuff like psych meds, where it's supposed to be more, you know, not permanent, but like constant, and you're increasing the dosage. Like, when does that end? Like, how do you navigate that situation? Because no matter what, either you're going to hit the max dosage, or you're gonna have to switch the meds. Like, there's no you can't be on one med forever, I don't think, because
Yeah. Well,
either it's gonna
some
fuck you up
people
or the tolerance won't work anymore. So it's weird.
some people are on pain meds for like their not pain meds but psych meds their like entire lives and they're fine, which is crazy to me because you hear so many stories of people saying how they have to have their dose upped constantly, and then they hit that max and they have to be tapered off, and while they're being tapered off they have to go through the horrible anxiety of that. So it's just, I don't know, but
Yeah,
I do know a few people that are like in their 60s and they've been taking the same psych med for like a long, long time.
it could be a mindset as well. Like, if you like, for me, I tend to have anxiety more when I've had anxiety, if that makes sense. Sort of like,
Yeah,
misery enjoys company or whatever. Like, the more anxiety I have, the more anxiety I have. You know what I mean? And the more times that I'm not anxious, or I'm getting used to, um, having less panic around, and the less anxious I feel. So it could be that, they've taken the drug that's helped them for so long that, they might not even have anxiety anymore. Potentially they're just taking it and they don't need it. I mean, it's
yeah,
possible. I don't know if everything increases with tolerance as far as like psych meds and stuff. I don't know if that always is the case, that you have to up the dosage or whatever. I'm not sure.
well, I know with some psych meds, when you increase the dose, worse side effects start to come on, so you have to switch.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
which the way it is. And there's some days where I'm like having a really bad day, and I remember that when I took Percocet, it made me feel better, and I know where I could go buy some. Whenever I have like cravings or thoughts about, all those were the fun times. I got to remember that they weren't the fun times. I was a bad person.
Something that always pops in my head is just, and I know I touched on it earlier, is just like the fact that you can get addicted to literally anything, like anything that makes you feel good, anything that's comfortable. And you know if you do anything too much, even if it's drinking water or taking naps, like, you could sleep too much, you can eat too much food, you can exercise too much, maybe you'll pull a muscle. Whatever you're doing, you have to do it in moderation and try to find balance. But you should, as much as humanly possible, stay away from things that are, incredibly addicting. I know there are times in your life where, bad things are going to happen to you and you may need a pain med, but you just have to understand that as happy and as good as it's making you feel, um, it's for the injury, and you can't treat it as like a cure to, some mental state. Like, the pill's making you happy. You can't think of it like that. It's
Yeah.
hard to do, especially if you break your arm and you've also been depressed, and now your arm doesn't hurt and you're happy, and you're like, oh well, it's a slippery road right there.
Yeah, that's basically how I felt. It was getting rid of my pain and making me happy at the same time. So
Well, I'm glad you came out of it, man. And it seems like you
anyone
did
that
it pretty
like,
much on your own. With the tapering
yeah,
off.
I shouldn't have done that though. That was excruciating.
Yeah.
But like, I can say that it'll ruin your life. It'll ruin your relationships. My person I was with at the time, I was with her for 6 years, and that's the main reason why it spiraled worse out of control. I'm not saying it was her fault, but when you're with somebody for 6 years, if I'm with some like my fiance now, if she was having a tough time, I love her. I've been with her for a long time. I wouldn't just sit back and watch her struggle. I would try to help her in whatever way I could. But that's not what my partner did at the time. No, she distanced herself and became numb to what I was doing. But I get I guess I could understand that a little bit. You see somebody you love like destroying themselves slowly. You but I don't know. For me, I would try to help instead of just like watching them like self destruct. But she took that as a way to leave, and that made my addiction 400 times worse.
I
That's
mean,
when I started snorting them, and when I started buying them more and more and more, and I just didn't give a fuck anymore.
I got a lot of friends and family that are addicted to stuff, and it's fine. I mean, obviously, I don't want them to be. I still love them, and I would prefer that they weren't. And if it becomes a you know dangerous situation, I do try to intervene and say my piece. But at the same time, sometimes I definitely have lost hope for people, and is this really worth my time? And it's hard to do because I feel like the person that I love is still in there. It's just because of their addiction or whatever they're on. They're really a zombie right now, and maybe that person still exists, but I sure ain't seeing them, and it's really hard to do. I mean, you have to also worry about yourself. So I think for the most part, it worked out just the way it was supposed to. Now you're with your fiance, you got your kids, you're clean, and it's a hard road to get to happiness, and happiness doesn't last forever either. But it seems like you made it out, or at least are making it out. Making progress, going forward, and all that.
It was really hard. Even when I weaned myself off, it was really hard to not be on Percocet anymore. It was really hard for me to stop snorting them. It once once you get past the like burning feeling, like it was it was nice. I I mean, of course it wasn't, but in my brain I was like, this is fun. I like doing this. No, man, it was horrible. Like I I at one point in time when I was like snorting like huge amounts of it, I was pretty confident that eventually I was just probably going to die. Because I the ones I was getting were like very large pills. So I would crush them all up and have like I don't know, couldn't even explain it. The pile was huge.
Yeah. You just said something about your nostril burning or something, and that just reminded me of the first time I smoked a cigarette and how it hurt, and I coughed and hurt it was like burning my throat, and like
Yeah.
now I don't feel that at all. Is that because I'm numb to that, or is my lung stronger? Or, like, that doesn't make any sense to me. How I can like
Your
smoke
lungs
millions of cigarettes and the first one hurt, you
your
know?
lungs have like gotten kind of used to it. The chemicals and stuff. Kind of like how my nose stopped burning after like the third or fourth time.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like when I first wake up in the morning and smoke a cigarette, sometimes my like I remember the first time I really smoked a cigarette, I got real like nauseous and dizzy, and like I got like this high feeling, and I like kind of fell over and like crawled inside, and I was like, wow, this is fun. And lately I started getting that same feeling, but now I understand that that's not a good thing, because the way I smoke cigarettes is I inhale it too fast. So I don't breathe when I'm smoking a cigarette. I kind of hit it 6 times and it's gone, and that dizzy feeling I'm feeling is my brain being deprived of oxygen. So now I know that it's not a good thing, and
It's-
now it gives me anxiety because I know that it's not a good thing.
Cigarettes are. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'll ever be able to quit. They're like the one thing that gives me comfort. Smoke like every 10 minutes.
I'd say I smoke about 10 a day now.
That's pretty good.
I
I
can't go out.
mean, yeah.
I don't want to go outside to smoke. I'm supposed to because my landlord. I pretty much been doing it since I moved to Dayton because we've had the same landlord like three separate times now, and all of his properties are non-smoking properties, so I can't smoke in here. I slipped up at the first place and was smoking in my room. I had a fan like you do, um, and then I was smoking at Congressional when we moved there, and pretty much both times I was smoking around Pam when she was pregnant. I didn't realize it.
Yeah. It's hard to stop. I mean, I've been smoking inside since I was 15, and it's like, for me, it's really hard to fall asleep. But as well as like, if I'm doing anything, I have to smoke, and if I smoked outside, I couldn't do anything at all for more than 10 minutes. But right before I fall asleep, I have to have just smoked a cigarette and gone to the bathroom because I don't know, for some reason when I lay down, I have to go to the bathroom every time I do. But if I were to smoke outside, I'd probably have to run outside like 10 times before I ended up falling asleep, and that just, I don't know, it's something I definitely need to work on.
Yeah. Remember how I said that, I never did like really anything illegal to get my drugs and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
You want me to I'd like to share with you my friend that got murdered what she did illegally to get her drugs.
All right.
Show like, that some people aren't like me. They don't just well, of course, it's illegal to go and buy drugs from somebody, but talking about like, writing fake checks, robbing banks, stuff like that.
Right.
Well, I met her when I was like 20, no, 18. She went to the same like mental health place that I did, and she, I could tell that she was like me. She had an addictive personality. She liked smoking and having fun, and she was doing a lot of bad stuff. She's in a group home, and eventually we started, dating, and I love this person. I can't explain it. It was just, you know, nice. Eventually we broke up, and I didn't see her for a while. And I moved into my apartment, and life was okay for a little while. And then she moved in right behind me, the same apartment, and I was like, uh, this is fate right here. But I was with somebody at the time, so I didn't ever try to pursue anything or anything like that. But I slowly started to realize that she was doing hardcore drugs because she would come to my house like once or twice a week, like about to collapse on the floor. She was overdosing on whatever she was on, and I would always try to call the hospital. Whenever they would come, she would say, "No, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to rehab," stuff like that. And eventually, it boiled down to me and her and all of our friends got together and locked her in my apartment. And they tried telling her that like you don't need to do all these horrible drugs, but it it didn't really matter. She was going to do what she wanted to do. And slowly, I didn't I just didn't know what to do. I've never experienced being on drugs before, so I didn't know how to help her. We all just decided that she's got to want to help herself first. But I didn't exactly get that far because on my birthday in 2000, 2010, I think, she got a letter in the mail saying that she was being asked to go to court. She was being charged with all these like horrible things. One of them was writing fake checks, possession of criminal tools. She was writing very large checks, fake checks, and giving them cash for money for drugs. Um, and she decided she wanted to, run away and not face that problem, so she ran away. And I was the last person to see her, and it was on my birthday. That's why like my birthday like sucks kind of every year a little bit. But she went missing for like 4 days, and I remember it was June the 16th. 4 days later, I was sitting in my friend's apartment, and I was just kind of curious because I saw on the news they found a body of somebody in the quarry on the south side of Columbus. So I called the detectives and gave them a description, but I wasn't family, so they couldn't tell me anything. And I talked to the detectives pretty much every hour, all day long. And later that night, they put it on the news that it was her. She was stabbed over drugs. She was stabbed like 40 times, and he threw her body in the quarry.
Jeez.
But like that showed me later on when I became a drug addict that she was on so much shit. It was probably really hard for her, and unfortunately, she took the different path and she decided to, do some really horribly illegal shit. Like I looked up her charges. She could have gotten like 20, 30 years in prison. Uh, so yeah, that kind of when I first started doing Percocet, like when I finally came to realization that I was an addict, because people that are addicts, they're not going to tell you they're addicts. They're going to say, "No, I take it for the pain." No, man, I'm not addicted. I can put whatever I want. They're
Right.
lying through their motherfucking teeth. you're if you're doing it like if you have to go out and buy it illegally and you don't have to go to a doctor to get it, because if you're really in that much pain, a doctor will give you pain medicine. But if you're out buying it, then deep inside that you can't go to a doctor and get it because you're not in pain. Once I realized I was an addict, I realized that what I could have done different to help her more, and that's another thing that I will never forgive myself for not doing more.
Yeah, I mean, you said, they're lying through their teeth. It might be a harsh word to say, but they might be delusional. They might not be, aware that, within their mind, for all they know, they're perfectly fine. They're just, self
That's true too.
medicating,
I also feel like bad because the people I was living with, the roommates, they wouldn't have had access to get um, pain medicine if it wasn't for me. Because I told them where they could go and get it in Columbus. We had just moved to Dayton. They didn't know anybody here in Dayton, and I told them where they could get it safely from. And that because of me, that led them down it's always their choice, but I opened the door for them to be able to find it more freely, and more accessibly. And I feel like that led them down the path that they went down a little bit harder than they would have.
I've felt that before. I had a lot of friends that, like, maybe weren't in the party scene when we were teenagers, and, I would bring them to parties, and, they would try shit, and, later on in life, you know, it only gets darker from there, and sometimes I feel responsible. But
Yeah.
but like you said, everybody has a choice. I mean, I wish I'd never had opened up that door, but typically if you're in a high school setting, there's probably a party and everyone's experiencing things, and people are gonna go different routes. So it potentially probably would have happened either way for them.
Yeah. I think like most people would probably be like happy thinking about like when they weren't doing stuff. But I don't know. Talking about it gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
Cuz I did a lot of bad shit.
But you're coming off. You're getting off of
Yeah.
it. Is there any part of you that thinks that? Are you worried of relapsing, or are you just done?
Oh no, I'm done.
That's good. Yeah.
Having kids changes a lot.
Yeah.
It might not for some people, but for me you know, I felt like a piece of shit when I'd get so anxious from taking it that I couldn't go change my kid's diaper. Pam would do it, and I'd be like, "Oh, you know, I don't like this. I don't like this." And it's funny because for a while after I stopped, I didn't feel like me anymore. But then slowly I started to turn back into who I was before I started. You know, because when I was doing Percocet, I'd only play video games when I was high, and for a while I didn't play video games at all until I was high. And
Right.
the time towards the end, I wouldn't take it until like 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock when Pam was home. So I didn't play very many video games, and now I play it whenever.
I feel that. I used to, get high and play video games, and that was really fun. And video games weren't as fun for a while, but um,
Yeah,
I've definitely played a lot since, coming off of stuff.
I don't think that I would ever take pain medicine again. Unless I'm like dying or something.
Right.
Like if I had a kidney stone, I would try to do whatever I could besides pain medicine. In fact, I don't think that they'd even give it to me because I would tell them that I'm a recovering opioid addict. They probably wouldn't give me any pain medicine.
Actually, reminds me of something. When I was 20, this happened after I, had my panic attack, getting high or whatever. But I dislocated my shoulder, and I was in like, the most pain I've ever felt in my life, more than any tooth pain I've ever experienced. Which teeth pain is severe, but
Yeah.
they took me to the hospital, and I had to lay there for like an hour, and they were offering me all the pain meds, because they knew how much pain I was in, and I just sat there. I did not want to get high, so I just, took the pain.
That's crazy, man. I probably would have said yes.
I'm so afraid of like feeling high or out of control.
That's the part that fucked my brain up because like at first like I was straight laced. I didn't do any drugs because I didn't want to ever lose control. But
Right.
then while I started doing it, I realized that I am still in control. It's just a little bit fuzzy and warm, a nice feeling. And then I told myself, oh, I'm never going to do stuff like LSD or acid because that really messes your brain up. Um, but now that I think about it, you do lose yourself when you do these things, even if you're doing it, for the right reasons. You're still not in control.
Yeah.
I wasn't in control. The Percocet was.
The dark times, as you said.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm glad you made it out, man.
Yeah.
We got to work on cigarettes a little bit, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Once my anxiety's under control more, I'm gonna start doing the patch. I think.
Well, I mean, you've
Just gonna,
already proven to yourself that you can do a lot more than you think you can. Overcome a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
because going through opioid withdrawals is a lot more difficult than nicotine withdrawals. But for everybody, the somebody might feel the same withdrawals from nicotine that I did through opioids. So
Well, another big difference is like cigarettes are illegal or legal. Buying them from
yeah,
somebody that you have to do more. It's easy. It's easier to get cigarettes. So
that lifestyle made my paranoia like times 30. Like I would
right.
always like make sure there wasn't nobody watching me, and dumb fucker would say, "All right, come in here and give me the money." I give him the money, and he'd give me the shit, and then he'd be like, "All right, see you later," and I'd be like, "Bro, I'm staying here for 10 minutes, man. Me coming and going every day in your house, me coming in for 3 seconds and leaving. There's a cop watching us. We're fucked, man." And he
Yeah.
was like, "All right, those are some good points." I was like, "Yeah, exactly." It,
Well,
it made my paranoia 40 times worse.
honestly, I still get, afraid when a cop drives by. I haven't broken a law in a long time, but I'm like, they're gonna pull over and ask me something, and I don't know. I get sketched out still to this day.
Yeah, man, I don't like cops very much.
I mean, I think they're important so the world's not on fire, but at the same time, I don't want them to talk to me.
I mean, I've also, my anxiety and paranoia from that, there were times where, I was driving my roommate's car with like $300 worth of Percocet on me, and
Yeah.
like a cop like drive by me and be like, "Oh fuck,
Yeah,
your boy
all
just
the
got
fear.
charged for,"
All,
because that's like 100 pills, man. That's not a, oh, you were gonna go home and take them. Like obviously these are all for me in my brain, but to a judge and cops, no, man, I'm smuggling this shit and I'm gonna distribute it. That's a felony.
right. I
That's
mean,
jail time, a lot of jail time.
it's not similar. I mean, it's not the same, but I remember getting high and getting into a car and having a pot on me, and before it was legal or whatever, and a cop pulled right behind us. We were at a stoplight, and I was shitting myself. I mean, not literally, but just internally, like just losing my mind. Luckily, he didn't pull us over.
Yeah.
That fear is real, man. And still feeling it. It's weird. Like, I don't know.
It is. I just wanted to let anyone that listens to this, if you ever need to talk to somebody to like, get you through your addiction or, for advice on anything, you can always feel free to message me. I'm in the main group. I'm also in the group chat on Messenger, you know. just want you to know that you're not alone. There, it felt like I was alone, but I really wasn't. If I reached out to somebody, they could have helped me, but I didn't. I did it the hard way. Um, yeah.
I think that's an important thing to say. I think, a lot of the time people feel like, people either aren't going to understand or they're going to shame them, or like you're a bad person and, how could you do all this stupid shit? But, there really are people that have gone through it and are willing to help and even wanting to help and, understanding. So I think it's important to talk about. I think it's nice, to offer help to people. So
Yeah.
Well, I don't have anything written down, so if that was it for you, that's it for me, brother.
Yeah, man.
Sounds good, man. I hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, man.
No problem.